Hey everyone, and welcome back. It seems like a lot of you are grappling with a pretty big relationship question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Whether or not to move in with your partner.
Hmm.
And we've gotten so many stories and questions from you guys and a ton of research.
Wow.
So today we're going to really deep dive into all of that and try to help you figure out
Okay.
if shacking up is the right move or
Right.
maybe a recipe for disaster.
It's interesting, right? Because cohabitation has really gone from taboo to the
Totally.
thing everyone does these days.
That's like a rite of passage or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people don't realize there's a lot more to it
For sure.
than just, sharing a Netflix password.
Yeah. And I'm seeing in the research this idea of thinking about cohabitation,
Mm-hmm.
like a compatibility test.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely.
It's kind of like you're test driving a car before you buy it.
Right. You get to see all those little quirks and habits that you just don't
Right.
see on a date. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, those
Yeah.
things that might not come up over candlelight?
Like how they squeeze the toothpaste tube.
Oh my gosh, yes. Or if
Well-
they leave their socks on the floor.
Oh. Or if they're like a midnight snacker and you're a early morning breakfast person.
And those things can be cute at first, but they can definitely become a problem.
Yeah. It goes deeper than that, though, right?
Oh, for sure.
I think I read somewhere that couples who fight about money in that first year of living together are like 30% more likely to break up.
It's true. Money is a big one. It is. It's not just annoying habits. It's deeper issues.
Compatibility.
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the stories that someone sent in really highlights this.
Okay.
They were talking about how they are super organized and their partner is,
Oh, no?
well, not,
They said creative.
yeah, that's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, I think they were trying to be diplomatic.
But living together kind of forced them to confront that and figure out how to,
It's a crucial skill.
It is in any relationship, really.
Absolutely, whether you're living together or not.
Right. And you had some notes here, too, about, different financial
Oh, yeah.
management styles.
Money is huge when you move in together
Absolutely.
because you have to shift from thinking about me to we.
Right.
And that can be really hard for some people.
So true. And that reminds me of something else I saw in the research.
What?
This idea of sliding versus deciding.
Ah, yeah, that's a big one.
So, are you consciously making this choice to move in together?
Right.
Or are you kind of just
drifting along.
Yeah, drifting because it feels like the next step.
Like if your lease is up.
Yeah, or all your friends are doing it.
Exactly.
But deciding means actually sitting down and talking about it.
Before you even start looking for a place.
Yeah, what are your goals? Are you on the same page?
You have to be intentional about it.
Intentionality.
Yeah, that seems to be a big theme.
I'm seeing it everywhere in the research. Because cohabitation isn't just about practical stuff.
Right.
It's also about emotional intimacy.
Okay, so you start to see a different side of your partner when you live together.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's not just date nights anymore.
No, you see how they handle stress, how they deal with arguments.
Right.
All those little things.
You're getting a sneak peek behind the curtain.
Exactly. And that can be really great.
Yeah.
But it can also be a little scary.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
One of the stories we got talked about how living together revealed that their partner would just shut down emotionally during arguments.
Wow.
And they had never noticed that before.
Like a double-edged sword.
It
can bring you closer.
Yeah.
But it can also expose those cracks.
Right. And that's where the safety net idea comes in.
Okay.
You have a chance to work through those issues before making a bigger commitment like getting married.
But there's another side to this too, right?
There is.
Like the potential downside.
Yeah, the dark side.
Ooh. I like that. Okay, so tell me, what are the potential downsides of this whole cohabitation experiment?
Well, some research shows that living together might make people less likely to get married.
Really?
Yeah, if you're already sharing a life, why bother with the paperwork?
So it's like you get too comfortable with the way things are.
Exactly. Complacency can be a real issue. Some researchers say that living together can lead couples to just slide into a relationship without really deciding to commit.
So you're not really working towards something.
Right. The urgency fades because things are comfortable.
It's like you're just floating along.
Yeah, like a lazy river.
Instead of, paddling upstream towards a waterfall.
A good analogy.
And does that affect the whole spark too?
You mean like the excitement of a proposal?
Yeah, or like getting married.
It's possible.
Does it lose its magic when you're already splitting the rent?
And arguing over whose turn it is to do the dishes.
Right, exactly. It becomes less about this big leap of faith.
Yeah.
And more about just adding a legal document.
Right, like a formality.
Okay, so maybe that whole living together kills the romance thing isn't totally off base.
It's something to think about.
It is. And you know what else I was thinking about?
Mm.
What about individual growth?
Oh, interesting.
Like, does moving in together stifle that?
It could.
Do you become so intertwined that you kind of lose yourself?
Yeah, that's that enmeshment idea we talked about.
Right.
You become so wrapped up in each other that you lose your own sense of self.
It's like you get lost in the couple bubble.
Right, and then you start making decisions based on what's best for the we
Yeah.
without thinking about what each person needs as an I.
So important.
It is. You need space to breathe.
Right.
To have your own hobbies and friendships.
It's about finding that balance.
Yeah, between us and me.
Us and me. Okay, I'm liking this.
It takes effort, though.
Oh, for sure.
It's not going to happen magically.
This is giving me so much to think about.
Me,
And I bet our listener is feeling the same way.
I bet.
It's clear that living together can make a relationship stronger,
It can.
but it also comes with some serious risks.
Absolutely. You have to be thoughtful about it.
You do? Okay, so we've talked about the compatibility test,
Uh,
the emotional intimacy,
yeah.
the potential for complacency,
Right.
and the importance of individual growth.
All important factors.
They are. But there's one more thing I want to explore
Oh, yeah.
before we move on.
Okay.
How does cohabitation impact how we view commitment itself?
Interesting.
Does that forever feeling have the same weight when you're already sharing a toothbrush holder
Right.
and arguing over who unloads the dishwasher?
That's a great question, and it's something researchers are still trying to figure out.
Okay.
Does marriage feel like just a piece of paper after you've been living together for years? Or does it become even more meaningful because you've faced challenges together?
I don't know. I guess it depends, right?
It does. Some couples feel like living together makes marriage less significant. Like they've already crossed the finish line, but others say it makes their commitment even stronger because they've proven they can overcome obstacles together.
So it can either strengthen your bond
Yeah,
or expose those weaknesses that might lead to a breakup.
exactly.
I'm sensing a theme here.
What's that?
It seems like the outcome really depends on how couples approach the whole thing,
That's a great point.
like how intentional they are about it.
It's not a guarantee of happiness,
Right.
but it can be a really powerful tool.
Yeah, for growth.
Yeah.
Building a foundation.
For sure.
Okay, well, speaking of different experiences, I think it's time to hear from our listeners.
Yeah, let's dive into those stories.
What are some that have really stuck with you?
Well, there's one about a couple who used cohabitation as like a trial marriage.
Yeah.
They set clear expectations from the beginning, talked about their needs and concerns regularly,
Right.
and it worked.
It did.
They ended up having a really happy marriage.
That's great.
They said living together was the best decision they ever made.
So it can be a really positive experience.
It can, but I'm sure not all the stories are that rosy.
Right. What about the other side?
What about the couples who struggled?
Yeah, what can we learn from them?
Well, one listener described their experience as a slow slide into resentment.
Oh, no.
They moved in together for convenience
Okay.
without really talking about their goals,
Uh-huh.
and they started taking each other for granted.
Oh, wow.
They eventually broke up feeling like they'd wasted years.
That's so sad.
It is. It shows the danger of just sliding into cohabitation without being intentional.
Without thinking about what you really want.
Exactly. It's not a magic solution.
Right.
It's about creating a shared vision for the future.
And putting in the effort.
Yes.
Okay, so we've heard from the good and the bad.
A mixed bag.
It is. And it seems like the big takeaway here is that cohabitation can be amazing,
Uh-huh.
but it takes a lot of self-awareness, communication, and a willingness to put in the work.
It's not a decision to be made lightly.
It's not. And it's definitely not a guarantee of happily ever after.
No, but with the right mindset and a commitment to nurturing both the we
Yes.
and the I,
You can create something really special.
you can... Okay, so we've talked about the compatibility test, the emotional intimacy, the potential for complacency,
Yeah.
and the importance of individual growth.
But there's one more thing I want to touch on
Oh, okay.
before we move on.
I'm intrigued.
Tell me more. How does cohabitation affect the perception of commitment itself?
I like where this is going.
Does that forever feeling have the same weight
Yeah.
when you've already been sharing a toothbrush holder
Fascinating question.
and arguing over whose turn it is to unload the dishwasher?
That's a good one. And it's something researchers are still trying to understand.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Does marriage feel like just a formality after you've been living together for years? Or does it take on a deeper meaning, a sense of solidifying a bond that's already been tested?
That's a tough one. I'm guessing there's no easy answer.
You're right. It's complex, and it seems to depend on the individuals involved and how they approach the whole experience.
So some couples might find that living together makes marriage feel less important.
Exactly. Like they've already reached the finish line,
Yeah,
and the ceremony is just a victory lap.
I can see that.
But others argue that cohabitation actually strengthens their commitment
Interesting.
because they've faced challenges and worked through them together.
So it's like they've already gone through boot camp,
Exactly.
and now they're ready to conquer the world as a team.
A united front.
So cohabitation can be like a crucible for commitment,
It can.
either making it stronger or exposing those weaknesses that might lead to a break.
Right. It all comes back to how couples approach it.
And that intentionality we talked about.
Exactly. It's not a magic formula,
Right.
but it can be a transformative experience.
For sure, leading to a stronger partnership,
Yeah.
whether it ends in marriage or not.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot of ground today, from the practical aspects of sharing a living space
Yes.
to the deeper emotional and societal implications of cohabitation.
And we've heard some really insightful stories from our listeners.
Definitely real-life experiences can be so illuminating.
They can.
Yeah.
And it's clear that cohabitation is a complex issue with no easy answers.
That's for sure.
But I think we've laid a good foundation for understanding the potential benefits and risks involved.
And hopefully given our listeners some food for thought.
Yeah, before they make this big decision.
Absolutely. Because ultimately the choice of whether or not to cohabitate is a personal one.
It is, and it's a decision that should be made with careful consideration.
And a lot of open communication.
Yes, communication is key.
Always is.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I want to shift gears a little bit
All right.
and talk about how cohabitation is not just a personal choice anymore.
Oh, interesting.
It become this cultural phenomena that's really reshaping how we think about relationships and commitment.
Definitely.
So how about we explore that next time?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, I can't wait to dig deeper into this with you and with all of our listeners.
Me too. This is fascinating stuff.
Okay, so we're back and ready to dive deeper into this whole cohabitation thing.
All right, let's do it.
And you know what's fascinating to me is how cohabitation isn't just like this personal choice anymore.
Right.
It's become this huge cultural phenomenon.
It really has.
And it's changing how we think about relationships and commitment.
Absolutely.
So where do we even begin with all of this?
Well, one thing that really stands out is how cohabitation rates have skyrocketed while marriage rates have gone down.
Yeah, I've seen those stats. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Back in the 60s, only about 500,000 unmarried couples were living together.
Wow.
Now it's over 9 million.
That's a huge jump.
It is, and it makes you wonder, how are these shifting social norms affecting what we expect from relationships?
Yeah, like is that traditional relationship timeline becoming obsolete?
It's definitely evolving.
Yeah.
You've got couples living together long-term without getting married.
Right.
And others using cohabitation as a way to test the waters before taking the plunge.
It's like the whole definition of commitment is changing.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and one of the listener stories you shared really highlights this.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
The one about the couple who decided to move in together.
Okay. Yeah.
Not necessarily because they were thinking about marriage or kids,
Right.
but more to support each other's careers
Yeah.
and, share expenses.
It was more about creating a partnership that worked for their lifestyle and their goals at that moment.
It's less about following a set path
Uh-huh.
and more about creating a relationship that fits your needs.
Exactly. It's like a more personalized approach to relationships.
I love that.
Right. It's not one size fits all anymore.
No, and maybe that's a good thing.
Maybe it is.
So it makes me think about how we define success in a relationship.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's not just about checking off those traditional boxes anymore.
Right. Not just marriage and kids.
It's about finding what works for you,
Exactly. Finding a dynamic that brings you both happiness and fulfillment.
whether that involves cohabitation or marriage or something else entirely.
Absolutely. It's about defining success on your own terms.
So we're really rewriting the rules of relationships.
It seems like it.
Okay, but let's get real for a second.
Okay.
Sharing a living space can be tough,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
even with the best intentions.
Absolutely.
Like who takes out the trash?
Right.
Who cleans the bathroom?
All those little things.
Yeah, all those little things that can become big problems.
Exactly. And that's why setting clear expectations and boundaries from the start is so important.
Okay, so less about the lovey-dovey stuff
Maybe a little less.
and more about those practical conversations.
Yeah, like finances, chores.
Maybe even a designated junk drawer policy.
You're not wrong. Who pays for what?
Yeah. How do you split the chores?
What happens when one person's idea of clean is another person's disaster zone?
Right. These things might seem small
Yeah, but they can cause a lot of tension.
if you don't talk about them.
Exactly. One study found that couples who create a detailed cohabitation agreement,
A what?
a cohabitation agreement,
Okay.
like outlining their expectations and responsibilities,
Okay.
they tend to have more satisfying relationships.
Interesting. So it's like a prenup for living together?
Kinda. It takes the guesswork out of it.
I like
It
it.
helps prevent those little annoyances from becoming huge fights.
And it's not about being right or wrong.
No,
It's about finding a compromise that works for both of you.
absolutely. A solution where everyone feels respected and heard.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
That's it. Cohabitation is a partnership.
It is.
And like any good partnership, it requires communication, compromise, and respect.
Okay, but what about personal space?
Oh, good question.
Is it even possible to have that when you're sharing a living space?
Well, just because you're living together doesn't mean you have to give up your independence.
So how do you find that balance between being together and being, your own person?
One thing that works for a lot of couples is creating designated me time zones.
Okay, I like that.
It could be a reading nook, workspace, or even just a certain time of day when each person gets to do their own thing.
Without being interrupted.
Exactly.
It's like creating little islands of individuality
I like that.
within the archipelago of togetherness.
Very poetic.
You know what else I was thinking about?
What's that?
What about couples who are used to having their own separate spaces, their own routines, their own quirks?
Yeah.
Can they really merge those two worlds without it being a total disaster?
It definitely takes effort,
I bet.
but I think it's possible.
Okay, how?
The key is to approach it with curiosity and a willingness to experiment. Think of it as an adventure.
Okay.
You're co-creating a new space that reflects both of your personalities.
It's about blending styles.
Exactly, not trying to force a perfect match.
And it's okay if you don't agree on everything.
Right. The beauty of a partnership is in embracing those differences.
I'm finding creative solutions.
Absolutely. It's not about perfection.
No, it's about what works for you as a couple.
Exactly. You don't have to live up to anyone else's expectations.
It's your space.
It is. Make it your own.
Okay, so we've talked about the societal shifts,
Uh-huh.
the importance of setting clear expectations,
Right.
the art of compromise, and that balance between togetherness and individuality.
All key ingredients for successful cohabitation.
They are. But there's one more thing we need to address.
Oh, okay.
What about those unexpected life events that can really throw a wrench in things?
You mean like job losses, family emergencies, unexpected expenses?
Exactly, those curveballs that life throws our way.
Yeah, those can be tough.
How do couples handle those situations when they don't have the legal and financial safety net of marriage?
That's where communication and shared responsibility become even more important.
It's about having each other's backs.
Yes, being there for each other emotionally and practically,
So even when things get tough,
even when things get tough.
you're a team.
You're a team. And cohabitation, like any relationship, will have its ups and downs.
That's true.
It's about weathering those storms together.
And coming out stronger on the other side.
Exactly. And that brings up another important point,
What's that?
the legal and financial side of things.
Okay, yeah, we touched on this a bit earlier.
Yeah, but it's worth diving deeper.
What are some things couples should think about to protect themselves?
Well, things like property ownership, financial contributions, healthcare decisions.
Okay.
Do you have a cohabitation agreement outlining who owns what?
Right.
What happens if one person moves out? Have you considered things like a power of attorney or a healthcare proxy?
I know it sounds like a lot of paperwork,
It can be.
but it's important to have those things in place.
Absolutely. It can prevent conflicts and protect you in case something unexpected happens.
It's about being proactive.
Exactly. And it's not just about protecting your finances.
Okay.
It's about making sure your wishes are respected.
If something happens.
Yeah, and that your partner can legally act on your behalf
It's better to have those tough conversations up front,
while things are good.
so you're prepared for whatever comes your way.
Exactly. Now, shifting gears a little bit.
Okay.
What about the emotional side of cohabitating without that formal commitment of marriage?
Yeah, like, do couples feel less secure?
It's possible. Some studies suggest that cohabitating couples might have more relationship anxiety.
Really? Why is that?
Well, especially if it's not clear what the future holds for the relationship.
It's like that feeling of being in limbo.
Yeah, not knowing where you stand or where things are going.
That can be tough.
It can, and it can be especially draining if one person is more invested in the idea of marriage.
Than the other.
Exactly.
So again, it comes back to communication.
Yeah.
Being honest about your needs and expectations.
Even if they don't match up perfectly.
Right. And respecting your partner's perspective.
Absolutely. It's about finding ways to create that feeling of security and commitment.
Even without the legal document.
Exactly.
Wow. This has been so insightful.
It has been a great discussion.
We've covered so much.
We have from practical tips to deeper emotional and societal implications.
And I hope our listeners feeling more informed.
Me too.
Yeah.
Equipped with the knowledge to make the best decision for themselves.
Yeah. But before we wrap things up,
Okay.
I want to give our listeners some actionable takeaways.
Yeah, some things they can actually use.
What are your top 3 pieces of advice for anyone thinking about moving in with their partner?
Okay, top 3 tips coming right up.
Okay, number 1.
Number 1, define your cohabitation vision.
What do you mean by that?
Talk to each other about what this means for each of you.
Okay,
Are you thinking about marriage?
right.
Or are you just looking for a more convenient living situation?
It's about being on the same page.
Exactly. Get that clarity from the beginning.
Okay, that makes sense. What's number 2?
Number 2, establish clear boundaries and expectations.
Okay.
Talk about the practical stuff like finances, chores, personal space.
All the nitty-gritty details.
Yes, and don't be afraid to get specific.
Right.
You might even want to write it down.
Like a cohabitation agreement.
Exactly.
Okay, and number 3.
Number 3, and this is probably the most important,
Uh-huh.
prioritize open and honest communication.
Yeah, that seems to be the theme here.
It is.
Communication is key.
Absolutely make time to check in with each other.
Okay.
Talk about your needs, your concerns, your hopes for the future.
Don't bottle things up.
No, and don't assume your partner can read your mind.
Talk it out.
Talk it out.
So define your vision, set boundaries, and communicate.
Those are the keys to success.
It sounds like a solid plan,
I think so too. And remember, cohabitation is a journey.
not a destination.
Exactly. It's an opportunity to grow together,
To learn about yourself and your partner.
to build a deeper connection.
So embrace the challenges.
Yes.
Celebrate the wins.
And remember, you're in this together.
Together. So as we wrap up our deep dive into cohabitation,
Yeah.
one thing that really sticks out to me
What's that?
is how different each experience is.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no right or wrong way to do it.
That's true. Every couple is unique.
It's about finding what works for you and your partner.
Exactly. And, sometimes I think we get so caught up in what we're supposed to do
Yeah.
that we forget to listen to our own intuition.
It's easy to compare ourselves to other couples.
Yeah. Or feel pressured to follow a certain path.
But at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that matters is whether the relationship feels right for you.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It's about creating a relationship that aligns with your own values.
Yes, and your goal.
And your own unique journey.
Not trying to fit into some cookie cutter mold.
Exactly. And, one question I get all the time
Oh, yeah.
is, does living together before marriage increase the risk of divorce?
I bet people are really curious about that.
They are, and the truth is the research is kind of all over the place.
So no easy answer.
No magic crystal ball.
So moving in together won't doom your relationship,
Right.
but it's also not a guarantee of marital bliss.
It's more complicated than that.
It sounds like it, yeah.
The things that really make a relationship last
Yeah.
are much deeper than just whether or not you live together before getting married.
Like communication,
Exactly.
how you handle conflict,
Shared values.
all those things that contribute to a strong partnership.
Right. Cohabitation itself isn't the deciding factor.
So it's more about how you approach the experience.
Yes.
Do you use it as an opportunity to grow and learn?
Exactly.
Okay, so we're debunking some myths here.
We are.
And speaking of myths,
Oh, here we go.
there's another one I hear all the time,
Lay it on me.
that men are less committed when they live with their partners.
Oh, man. That's a classic.
But is there any truth to it?
Honestly, no. The research just doesn't support it.
So commitment levels vary from person to person,
Ab-
regardless of gender or living arrangement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To say that men are somehow less capable of commitment
Yeah.
just because they're sharing a space with their partner
Right.
is just not true.
It's a stereotype that needs to go away.
I agree.
Commitment is a choice,
It is, and it's influenced by so many factors.
not just where you live.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm glad we cleared that up.
Me too.
And another really important thing to remember about cohabitation
What's that?
is that it's not a one-way street.
Oh, good point. It's not about one person convincing the other to move in.
Right, or feeling pressured.
It should be a mutual decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if one partner is hesitant,
Yeah.
it's okay to slow things down.
Absolutely. Respect each other's timelines.
Maybe start by spending more time together.
Yeah, like weekend trips or gradually transitioning to spending more nights together.
It's about finding a pace that works for both of you.
Exactly. No need to rush into anything.
I think that's really empowering advice.
I hope so.
You have the power to create a relationship that feels right for you.
You do, and it doesn't have to look like anyone else's relationship.
So we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have, from practical tips to deeper emotional and societal considerations.
We've busted some myths,
A few.
explored different viewpoints.
Hopefully given our listeners some things to think about.
Before they make this big decision.
Absolutely.
But before we say goodbye,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with a few final thoughts.
Ooh, I like that. Let's send them off with some inspiration.
Okay, so first things first, relationships are always evolving.
They are. It's a journey, not a destination.
And cohabitation can be a powerful part of that journey.
It can, but it's not a magic solution.
No, it takes work and intentionality.
And a willingness to show up for each other.
Even when things are tough.
Even when things get messy.
And remember, communication is key.
It is. Talk to each other. Listen to each other.
Don't be afraid to share your needs and your fears.
And your dreams.
The more you communicate, the stronger your bond will become.
Absolutely.
And finally, don't forget to have fun.
Yes, life is too short to be serious all the time.
Find those moments of joy.
Make time for adventure.
A little laughter can go a long way.
Especially when things get stressful.
This has been such an amazing conversation.
I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure. And to our listeners out there,
Yes.
wherever you are on your relationship journey, remember this.
It says.
You are the architect of your own happiness.
I love that.
Create a life and a love that feels authentic to you.
And don't be afraid to break the mold.
Be true to yourselves.
Well said. And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of cohabitation.
Yes. Thanks for listening.
We hope you've learned something new.
And maybe even had some thought-provoking conversations of your own.
Until next time, keep those questions coming.
Keep exploring.
And keep creating relationships that bring you joy, growth, and a deep sense of connection.
See you next time.